Discover the 3 most powerful Machiavellian seduction methods that 99% of men are unaware of. Forbidden psychological techniques to ignite irresistible attraction. The invisible move that breaks patterns. The imperial demeanor that flips power dynamics. And the calculated neglect that creates obsession. Learn magnetic body language, the perfect timing of touch, and how to become the man they can't forget. Have you ever felt that devastating frustration watching the person you desire slip away without even noticing you? That silent pain consuming you as you remain motionless, invisible, reduced to a witness of your own irrelevance. You're about to discover something that challenges everything you thought you knew about human desire. I'm not talking about cheap tricks or superficial ploys, but an ancient code that only 1% of men know and master. A dance between minds and bodies where most follow rules that never worked, while a select few know the secret moves that transform. Attraction into obsession. If this introduction already made you think for a second, hit that like button now, because what I'm about to reveal can revolutionize your existence forever. These forbidden Machiavellian methods have remained hidden for centuries, and today, for the first time, they will be revealed in all their raw truth. The first forbidden Machiavellian method begins long before you utter a single word. It's what I call the invisible move. That instant you break with all expectations and create a fissure in everyday reality. Forget everything you've been told about traditional approaches, those "hello, how are yous" that die the moment they're uttered. Seduction doesn't begin with a polite greeting that vanishes into thin air without a trace. It begins with a disruption, a fracture of the expected, a spark that awakens something dormant within her. Think of it this way. Every woman you meet has been approached hundreds, perhaps thousands of times, always with the same worn-out lines, the same predictable patterns, the same desperate energy that screams, "Please notice me." Her brain has developed an automatic filter that immediately discards anything that sounds familiar or conventional. It's a defense mechanism, a way to navigate a world where female attention is constantly solicited. So what does the first forbidden Machiavellian method do? It shatters that filter from the very first second. Imagine approaching her, and instead of following the script all other men follow, you say, "You look like someone who hates superficial conversations but secretly loves chaos." In that instant, something shifts in her expression. A pause, a blink. Her brain ignites like an engine that just received high-octane fuel. Why does this happen? Because you've interrupted her automatic pattern. You're no longer just another face in the crowd. You've sparked her curiosity, and curiosity is the gateway drug to desire. This is the first principle. Machiavelli understood perfectly. Controlling the first impression is controlling the entire interaction that follows. The first line is the foundation of the entire game that follows. It's like the opening move in chess. It sets the tempo for the entire match. It defines the emotional battlefield where everything else will unfold. If you open weakly with something common and predictable, you've already put yourself on the defensive. You'll spend the rest of the interaction chasing her, trying to regain lost ground. But if you open strong, with something unexpected, poetic, or slightly absurd, you gain the frame advantage. Now she's in your world, playing by your rules. This is the true Machiavellian move. It's not about exactly what you say. It's about how you cut through the everyday noise. And this isn't just verbal. It's energetic. It's your tone, your timing, the deliberate calm in your speech. That slight smile as if you already know how it's all going to end. Men who approach with high-frequency, predictable lines are dismissed by her subconscious in seconds. But a man who carries himself with a sense of controlled unpredictability, he becomes a question she wants to answer. Never forget this forbidden truth. Women are attracted to what they don't immediately understand. So be the enigma, be the disruption, be the man who speaks not to impress with pretty words, but to provoke something within her that she had forgotten she could feel. The invisible move doesn't seek validation. It doesn't beg for attention. It projects a clear psychological signal. I'm not here to impress you with desperation. I'm here to see if you're worth the game. When your first move makes her pause and think, the game is already yours. Machiavelli understood this perfectly when he wrote, "Men judge more by their eyes than by their intelligence, for all can see, but few comprehend what they see." The first forbidden method teaches you to be seen in a way few men achieve, through a move that seems invisible to most, but is devastatingly effective for those who execute it with mastery. This is where the entire foundation of attraction begins to solidify into something unbreakable. The second forbidden Machiavellian method is what I call the imperial demeanor, and it goes far beyond the superficial confidence everyone preaches, but few truly embody. True imperial demeanor isn't what you say, it's what you don't need to say. It's that silent presence that effortlessly fills spaces. Because you see, she perceives everything before you even open your mouth. She reads your essence. She observes how you sit, how long you maintain eye contact, whether your presence fills the room or begs for space. Machiavelli stated it with brutal clarity. It is better to be feared than loved if one cannot be both. I'm not talking about generating literal fear, but about creating respect, about awakening that feeling that you're in front of someone who doesn't need her approval to fully exist. True imperial demeanor is silent. It walks unannounced, speaks slowly, moves with certainty, and above all, doesn't fear loss. That's the posture that flips the entire power dynamic on its head. Once you learn it, she starts qualifying herself to you, instead of you having to prove your worth to her. Let me make this visual so you understand it completely. Think of the last time you walked into a car showroom. The salesperson who hovered over you, stuck to you like a shadow, constantly asking, "Do you like it? Do you want to test drive it? What do you think?" He radiated a desperation you could smell, and you instantly had the upper hand because his neediness diminished his value in your eyes. Now imagine another salesperson. He greets you calmly, elegantly shows you the car, then quietly steps back. He knows what he's offering. He knows you'll feel it if it's right for you. Suddenly you feel the need to prove you're worthy of the deal. You start asking questions. You start justifying your interest. It's exactly the same in seduction. When you demonstrate that your life is complete, rich in purpose, full of joy, anchored in strength, with or without her, you become the prize, not the desperate hunter, not the emotional beggar pleading for attention. How do you radiate this imperial demeanor through your body? Because words lie, but energy never does. Shoulders relaxed but strong. Upright posture that speaks of dignity. Unwavering eye contact that doesn't apologize for existing. Slow, steady breathing. Precise and intentional movements as if you own time itself. No trembling hands, no nervously bouncing legs, no fast, anxious speech. You speak as if you trust your silence, because studies show that over 90% of communication is nonverbal. She doesn't just hear you, she feels you in every fiber of her being. And if your energy says, "Please love me," she'll pull away, even if your words say something entirely different. But if your presence says, "You're welcome to join me, but I don't bend for approval," she'll lean into you because detachment is intoxicating. It's addictive. It's what most men never manage to convey. This is the Machiavellian paradox that changes everything. The less you seek validation, the more your value multiplies in her eyes. The less you need her approval, the more she'll want to earn yours. It's the perfect inversion of the usual dynamic where the man pursues and the woman evaluates. So remember, don't chase her attention. Chase your own inner power, because when a man becomes magnetic from within, everything outside begins to orbit around him as if he were the gravitational center of his own universe. True power, as Machiavelli knew, isn't exercised. It's silently exhibited. It's an aura, a frequency, an inner certainty that others can feel. And when you genuinely cultivate it, you become irresistible, not because you try to be, but because you simply are. This is the most counterintuitive of all methods, the one that defies every natural instinct you have. It's what I call calculated neglect, the seductive art of stepping back right at the peak of connection, not because you don't care, but because you understand one of the most powerful truths about human desire. Longing creates obsession. Emptiness generates desperate yearning. Machiavelli understood this when he wrote, "Men are so simple and so ready to obey present necessities that one who deceives will always find one who allows himself to be deceived." This isn't about deceiving in the sense of lying, but about understanding that people value what they can't easily have. You know that perfect moment when conversation flows effortlessly, when smiles come naturally, when she's completely present with you, engrossed in your presence, hanging on your every word. That's not the moment to push forward and squeeze every last drop out of that connection. That's the moment to leave, to disappear, right when everything feels most alive and promising. Yes, exactly. At the absolute peak. Just when it feels most electric and full of possibilities. You simply say, "I'd love to stay longer, but I have to go. Let's pick this up another time." What happens next isn't logical. It's completely chemical and primitive. Her brain releases a considerable amount of dopamine, and then you disappear. You've just become the episode that ends on a cliffhanger, the song that cuts out at the best part, the book that closes just as the plot gets interesting. Think of the last addictive series you watched. It didn't explain everything. It didn't resolve all the storylines. It left you hungry for more. That's what you must become. Not the 3-hour movie that drags on until everyone loses interest, but the tense cliffhanger episode that leaves her breathless and counting down the days until the next season. This means you don't reply the instant she texts you. You don't answer every call as if you're waiting by the phone. You live your life. You move through your world like a man on a mission, a man with options, purpose, and his own gravitational pull. Because when she notices your absence, her emotional radar activates in a way she can't control. Where are you? Who are you with? Why haven't you replied? And in that moment, she's not just thinking about you, she's feeling you. Now you're looping in her mind, replaying your voice, rereading your last text as if it were a secret code she needs to decipher. This is the crucial shift when she starts pursuing, not out of strategy, but out of unresolved tension, raw emotion, a craving for resolution. That's what most men never understand. They stay too long, reply too quickly, eliminate all tension, and in doing so, kill desire in its cradle. But you'll learn to gracefully pull away, to leave her with a taste, not the whole meal, to create silences that resonate louder than words, because that's the most beautiful and cruel paradox. The less she has of you, the more she'll need you. Calculated neglect isn't cruelty. It's a deep understanding of human nature. It's recognizing that emptiness isn't absence, but inverted presence. It's the space where her imagination builds idealized versions of you, where your value increases exponentially without you having to do absolutely anything. And this works because it goes against all modern social programming. In a world where everything is instant, where immediate gratification is the norm, the man who knows how to create space, who understands the power of absence, immediately becomes different, immediately intriguing. But be warned, this doesn't mean ignoring her or treating her poorly. Calculated neglect isn't genuine disinterest. It's strategic interest. It's understanding when to withdraw to create longing, when to be silent so your words carry more weight when they finally arrive. As Machiavelli said, never attempt to win by force what can be won by cunning. Calculated neglect is precisely that. The cunning to understand that sometimes the most powerful move is to make no move at all. Now that we understand the 3 forbidden Machiavellian methods, it's time for the truth, practical application in the real world. Because without action, everything we've discussed becomes impotent theory. And theory without practice is like a map without a journey. Interesting, but useless. The application begins with something almost no one will tell. Perfect calibration. It's not about applying these methods rigidly or mechanically. It's about understanding the subtle dance between what she expects and the unexpected, between what she consciously craves and what she unconsciously desires. The first step is to observe before acting. When you meet a woman, take a moment to read her energy. Is she extroverted or introverted? Does she speak fast or slow? Is her body language open or closed? This initial reading will allow you to adjust the intensity of your methods. With an extroverted, energetic woman, the invisible move needs to be more dramatic, more provocative, because her stimulation threshold is higher. For example, you seem like the kind of person who has 2 completely different personalities, the one you show the world and the one you keep only for yourself. With a more reserved, introspective woman, a subtler but equally unexpected move. There's something about the way you observe everything that tells me you see things most people miss. The imperial demeanor remains constant with any type of woman, because it's your foundation, your center of gravity. It doesn't change depending on who you're with. Rather, it becomes part of your essence. It's how you move through the world regardless of who's watching. However, calculated neglect requires fine-tuning depending on the individual. With someone very confident, you can be more direct in your withdrawal. With someone more anxious or with insecure attachment patterns, you need a more gradual retreat to avoid activating defense mechanisms that end up closing all doors. Here's the secret nobody tells you. These methods work in layers, not in linear sequence. It's not that you first apply the invisible move, then the imperial demeanor, and finally calculated neglect. It's that all three methods intertwine, mutually reinforcing each other, creating a magnetic field of attraction impossible to resist. Think of it as a symphony, not dance. Steps. Everything happens simultaneously at different levels of intensity depending on the moment. The invisible move might last seconds, but it sets the tone. The imperial demeanor is constant, underlying everything you do. And calculated neglect appears at strategic moments, like the silence between musical notes that creates rhythm. But pay attention to this crucial point. Authenticity is everything. If you try to apply these methods as external techniques, like a disguise you put on, you'll be exposed immediately. Women have an extremely sensitive radar for detecting incongruities. If your words say one thing but your energy says another, they will always trust the energy. That's why the true application of the forbidden code begins with yourself, with transforming yourself internally, with genuinely cultivating that emotional detachment, that magnetic presence, that ability to move unpredictably in a predictable world. What does this look like in practice? Imagine you're at a bar and you see a woman who interests you. You don't approach immediately. You observe her. You breathe. You center yourself. When you finally decide to approach, you do so with a clear purpose but without attachment to the outcome. Your invisible move might be to completely ignore the conventions of a first meeting. Instead of introducing yourself, you say, "I just made a bet with my friend that I can guess 3 things about you just by looking. If I get any wrong, I'll buy you a drink. If I get them right, you tell me something no one else knows about you." Your imperial demeanor manifests in how you occupy the physical space next to her. You don't anxiously lean forward. You maintain a relaxed yet powerful posture. Your voice is calm, slightly lower than normal. Your movements are deliberate, not nervous or rushed. And finally, after 15-20 minutes of genuine conversation, when you feel a real connection growing, you apply calculated neglect. "It was a pleasure meeting you. I have to go meet my friends now, but we should definitely continue this conversation another day." And you leave while she still wants more, not when the conversation has lost its magic. To truly master the 3 forbidden Machiavellian methods, you need to understand the deep psychology that underpins them. It's not enough to apply techniques. You must understand why they work, what triggers they activate in the human mind, what chemicals they release in the brain. Human desire is not rational. It never has been, and it never will be. We operate under the illusion that our romantic decisions are conscious, but modern neuroscience has proven something Machiavelli intuited centuries ago. Attraction happens in the primitive brain, in those ancient layers where decisions are made before the conscious mind even realizes it. Do you think women consciously choose who they fall in love with? Of course not. It's their primitive brain that decides, that ancestral part stemming from caveman times, when survival depended on choosing the right mate. And that brain doesn't care about flowers or expensive dinners. It's not moved by romantic gestures lifted from movies. It cares about signals of value, indicators of power, markers of social status. It cares about visceral feeling, not reasoned logic. And the 3 forbidden methods directly pluck those primordial strings. The invisible move activates the brain's alert system. When you do something unexpected, unpredictable, you trigger an orienting response. Her amygdala, that part responsible for registering threats and opportunities, lights up immediately. You're not dangerous, but you're also not predictable. And that combination is intoxicating to the female mind. The imperial demeanor activates the social hierarchy evaluation system. For millennia, women have developed an extreme sensitivity to detect which men occupy alpha positions in their social groups. Not because they are superficial, but because evolutionarily, mating with high-status men meant greater protection and resources for her and her offspring. When you embody true imperial demeanor, you're sending clear signals at a subconscious level. I have social value. I don't need to beg for attention because I receive attention naturally. I am the choice, not the desperate chooser. Calculated neglect activates perhaps the most powerful psychological mechanism of all, reactance theory. When we perceive our freedom to have something is threatened, in this case, your attention and presence, that something immediately becomes more valuable. That's why children want the exact toy they can't have, and it's why adults haven't changed as much as we like to believe. Furthermore, calculated neglect creates a pattern of intermittent reinforcement. Studies show that when rewards are predictable, they quickly lose their addictive power. But when they are intermittent, unpredictable, they become exponentially more powerful. It's the same mechanism that makes slot machines and gambling addictive. When your attention and affection arrive intermittently, not constantly or predictably, you become a source of dopamine for her. Literally, you become a drug. Your presence, your messages, your attention transform into doses of neurological pleasure that she begins to crave almost desperately. But there's something more subtle and profound at play here. Something few truly understand. What these methods ultimately provoke is what psychologists call cognitive dissonance. When your actions don't align with her expectations, when you don't follow the script all other men follow, you create a mental tension that needs resolution. And the way her mind resolves that tension is fascinating. She begins to justify her interest in you. She starts finding reasons why you're special, different, intriguing. She begins to convince herself that there's something extraordinary about you that justifies her attraction. The most powerful thing about all this is that you're not manipulating her feelings. You're creating a space for her feelings to naturally flourish. You're not forcing anything. You're inviting. You're not pushing. You're attracting. And therein lies the crucial difference between toxic manipulation and the art of Machiavellian seduction. You're not creating false feelings. You're creating the perfect context for real, deep, intense feelings to emerge. As Machiavelli said, men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand. For everyone can see, but few can feel. Everyone sees what you appear to be, but few understand what you are. We've reached the most advanced level of the forbidden methods, magnetic touch. This isn't a separate fourth method, but the physical expression of the previous three. It's where theory becomes sensation, where the abstract becomes tangible, where seduction leaves the realm of words and enters the primal domain of human contact. This isn't about uncontrolled lust. It's not about groping or forcing situations. This is ancient ritual, primitive language that transcends words. Touch is humanity's oldest language, older than words, deeper than logic. It bypasses the mind and speaks directly to the subconscious, where real decisions about attraction and desire are made. But here's the secret that changes everything. She's not attracted to the touch itself. She's attracted to the way it happens, to its perfect timing, its rhythm, its clear intention. The right touch at the right moment can bind a memory to her body in a way that will last forever. But the wrong touch, the rushed, the forced, kills everything instantly. How does it begin then? Not with blind audacity, but with calculated innocence. A light touch on her shoulder as you laugh at something she said. A hand gently guiding her through a doorway. A slow, playful high five that lingers half a second longer than normal. Moments that feel natural, but leave an indelible mark. You escalate, not through pressure, but through presence. You touch, then you withdraw. And that withdrawal is everything. It creates absence. And absence creates craving. This is what most men never understand. Touch isn't about contact. It's about what happens in the moment after. Because when you touch and then pause, her body feels the silence and begins to miss you before you've even left. This is intermittent touch, the psychological equivalent of a heartbeat. On, off, near, far, safe, dangerous. It builds tension she can't name. It floods her system with oxytocin and dopamine, the same chemicals released during pleasure and connection. And here's the beautiful paradox. The more natural it seems, the more powerful it becomes. You shouldn't telegraph intent. You shouldn't hesitate. You touch like a man who's done it 1,000 times. Not because you're desperate, but because you're centered in yourself. Your hand doesn't ask permission. It reads her reaction. If she leans in, you know. If she pulls away, you adapt. Because masculine touch isn't invasive, it's observant. It listens with the skin. And when used correctly, it makes her feel something terribly rare in the modern world. A man who is in control of himself and attuned to her at the same time. That is magnetic. That's what keeps her up at night. Machiavelli understood that the greatest power isn't imposed but insinuated, the kind that slowly filters in until it's impossible to distinguish from one's own desires. Magnetic touch works exactly like that, not as an imposition, but as a silent invitation she can't refuse. There's a specific moment you must learn to recognize, a moment that separates masters from amateurs. It's that instant when her pupils slightly dilate, when her breathing changes rhythm, when her body unconsciously orientates itself towards yours. It's the silent signal that says, "I'm ready for more." Most men never notice these signals. They move too fast, or worse, never move at all out of fear of rejection. But you, who are learning the forbidden methods, will develop this sensitivity that will allow you to move in perfect sync with her nonverbal cues. Always remember, the true power of magnetic touch isn't in its intensity, but in its precision. It's not about forcing, but about knowing exactly when and how to touch so that every contact imprints itself on her sensory memory. And the ultimate beauty of this method is that it transcends words. Long after she forgets what you said, she'll remember how you made her feel, not in her mind, but in her body, because that's where desire truly lives, not in elaborate thoughts, but in primal, instinctive, irresistible sensations. When you master the invisible move, the imperial demeanor, calculated neglect, and crown them with magnetic touch, you become more than just an interesting man. You become an unforgettable experience, a presence etched into her nervous system, someone she can't forget even if she wanted to. And that is the true goal of the forbidden Machiavellian methods, not just to attract momentarily, but to create an impression so powerful that it lingers long after you're gone. As Machiavelli himself said, the nature of peoples is inconstant. It is easy to persuade them of something, but difficult to keep them in that persuasion. Time slips away while you stand there, brooding, overanalyzing every possibility. Other men are already using these forbidden methods and getting results while you keep watching, keep doubting, keep wondering if this really works. Every moment of indecision is a scalpel slowly clipping the wings of your true potential. Ask yourself, 5 years from now, do you want to be in the exact same place with the same silent frustrations? Watching the woman you wanted in the arms of a man who simply knew how to move? Or do you want to be the man they can't forget? The man who never begs? The man who chooses instead of being chosen? The decision is yours and always has been. But remember this, as if your life depended on it. Knowledge without action is dead. True power doesn't wait for permission. If what you discovered today resonated with you, comment, "I command," without saying a word. And get ready, because in the next video, I'll reveal the fourth forbidden method, the one Machiavelli hid even from his closest disciples, the final code that unlocks everything else.